All right, everybody, welcome to the third episode of the Backseat Huddle podcast. I am your host and illegitimate Tom Brady love child, Tristan Weber, and I am joined by my co-host and Kyler Murray Stan Addison. We are going to go ahead and start out with Trey Lance this week. So Trey Lance is out for the season with an ankle injury that he sustained in the first quarter of this week's game versus the Seahawks. So Addison, how does this affect the 49ers and Lance moving forward?
So I believe this injury to Trey Lance will ultimately be a career decider for Trey Lance. Ultimately, I'm not a huge Kyle Shanahan fan. I think he's very irresponsible with players, especially for Trey Lance. It kind of seemed as if Kyle Shanahan was trying to make Trey Lance into this Josh Allen fantasy project that never really panned out. And I also can't trust a man who comes from the nut of the person who invented icing the kicker, Mike Shanahan. I think Kyle Shanahan is in a win mode now. And I just don't think there's enough patience in Kyle Shanahan at this point for Trey Lance to not only recover from an injury, not only physically and mentally, but also recover in terms of a football player. And I just don't think Kyle Shanahan has enough time. And we could ultimately see Trey Lance kind of spiraling out of control in terms of his career.
Sure. So for me, this takes them from a maybe playoff team to right back to the team that can make the NFC Championship game again. And it's unfortunate because you hate to think about it like this because I know I don't want to see him get hurt. You don't want to see him get hurt. And we both feel bad that it happened. But
Mhm.
the unfortunate truth is they are better right this minute than they were last week at this time.
Yeah,
So
100%.
we've seen what they do. Uh, we've seen what they do with Jimmy G under center for the past few years. They're routinely a top team in the NFL. And they always bring that setup that Kyle Shanahan is 8-27 without Jimmy G under center. So, like you said, is he going to have the patience with Trey Lance? So, once again, this is just going to go back to being the team that can't quite win the Super Bowl because their quarterback isn't quite good enough, which is the reason they drafted Trey Lance anyway. So they're going right back to it.
I will say there's kind of two narratives to take away from this. One narrative is the fact that Jimmy G is a good quarterback. He's a winner. He's won in the past, even as a backup. We've
Right.
seen him be able to take teams to the Super Bowl and perform reasonably well in those situations. I will say another narrative to take away from this is just how cursed the third pick overall is for teams historically. You have Trent Richardson, Solomon Thomas, Dante Fowler. There was another one that I saw that kind of Blake Bortles. The third pick just seems to be kind of a miss. And it's not like Trey Lance is coming from Ballers University. He's coming from the middle of nowhere. He doesn't have the same time that Tua has. If Tua performs poorly, we can be like, all right, he's been a top prospect for 10 years of his life, dating back to high school. Trey Lance was kind of just, wow, look at this combine warrior, this athlete, this
Right.
Josh Allen-esque type player. And I just don't think anybody will really have enough time to really flesh him out as a player.
No, you're totally right on this one. The bigger story on this is that Trey Lance is entering bust territory. The issue, and you touched on this, I don't
Mhm.
think you're quite giving it enough credit, is that this is potentially a career ending injury for Trey Lance. And
Sure.
it's not debilitating physically, but he needed this season so bad to get the reps in. The knock on Trey Lance was always that he was raw and inexperienced. So now you're taking another entire season away from him. So Trey Lance is going to be in year 3 with 5-6 starts under his belt, but we gave him a chance really for the same reasons that you just said, is because the raw tools that he has, and he isn't as accurate as you'd like to be. He has about 100 passes thrown in the NFL, and he's completed about 50% of them. So he was drafted to overtake the guy in front of him, but wasn't quite good enough to do so. And he is really getting where he's got because of the raw tools. And that's exactly what we say about Jordan Love. So I think there's a real comparison there. The only difference is Trey Lance got that chance because Jimmy Garoppolo isn't Aaron Rodgers. So I think it's going to happen is we're going to look around and see that he's the weak at the end of this season, that Trey Lance is the weakest pick from that draft class. Mac Jones, we know what he is. He's solid. Trevor Lawrence looks to be ascending. And here's Trey Lance, who just can't see the field. I mean, he hasn't started a full season since his freshman year in college. So I don't know what the answer is for the 49ers long term, but I really hope that Trey gets it together, or rather, that's a bad way to say it. I really do hope that Trey figures it out because he looks special on the field. All the reasons you said that he got drafted number 3, you see it and you have that wow moment. But I really do hope he gets it together, man. I really do.
Yeah, I feel like another big thing to mention is that this is not the 2000s. This is not the 90s where these young rookie quarterbacks get time to develop, make mistakes. Since 2012, with RG3, Andrew Luck, Russell Wilson, these guys need to perform within 2 years. So the bust window, or the window between, being a rookie and being a bust, is a very small one. If you're not performing, if you're not getting stuff done in your first 2-3 years, people are going to start throwing the bust word around. And I feel with Trey Lance, that is a huge possibility.
You hit the nail on this one. And a good example of this is your guy, Kyler Murray. Like this very first season, he comes out 5-10, you saw the flashes. And then the next season, you see him take that big step towards you. Like, wow, this guy really took that step. You see him.
Exactly.
And that's what we want to see out of Trey Lance, which you would have expected to see this season, given they spent the entire season getting to learn, develop, do it kind of the old school way. And you're totally right. The one thing I also think you're right is you mentioned this isn't the early 2000s, isn't the 90s. Offenses now are able to be catered more to what the quarterback can do well. So if offense is getting catered to what you do well and you still can't do it, that is, like you said, where the bust thing totally can be absolutely applied to Trey Lance up to this point. So
yeah,
I'm ready to move on. You good there?
Yeah, no, I've pretty much said everything I wanted to say about him.
Perfect. All right, let's go ahead and move on. Russell Wilson is really Russell Wilson. The Broncos have not had the start to the season they envisioned. They are having a rough 2 games. They have only scored 2 touchdowns offensively so far. So who is to blame?
There's a lot of places of blame you can have for this, but this has just been downright disgusting. They had the Seahawks, and then they had the Houston Texans, who they didn't beat convincingly, by the way. I think the upgrade is not looking as apparent as it did when the trade first happened. I still think that if Russ would be in a better situation in Seattle currently with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett than he is right now this year with the Broncos. Look at the landscape. You have the Chiefs, you have the Raiders, you have a super team in the Chargers in the making. And I just, given the landscape and given what we've seen from Russell Wilson and the Broncos, I'm starting to have some doubts that this is really even an upgrade.
Okay, so the reason he left Seattle is the reason that they're sucking right now, and it is plain and simple the coach, Nathaniel Hackett.
I agree.
Nathaniel Hackett. You know who Nathaniel Hackett reminds me of? Freddie Kitchens. He isn't a head coach. I absolutely unequivocally refuse to believe that a Super Bowl winning, multiple Super Bowl trip, routinely top 10 Russell Wilson all of a sudden just sucks. He didn't look good in the first half of that game. He didn't look good. They were having drop balls. He was missing some, but they cleaned it up in the second half. So I am 100% placing the blame on the head coach, and I would not be shocked to see him gone by mid-season. I would not be shocked to see this be a mid-season fire for Nathaniel Hackett.
Oh, yeah. I think Russell Wilson is a tremendous quarterback. You've heard my takes on here. I think he's phenomenal. I just feel the Broncos are incredibly uninspiring. And in a division with, again, the Chargers, Chiefs, and Raiders, they don't have that X factor to them. Their X factor has been losing them games. Russell is their X factor. He is their guy. And no one can convince me that Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy, Mr. didn't have a touchdown all last year, the Alabama superstar Jerry Jeudy, is better than Tyler Lockett, or Cortland Sutton's better than DK Metcalf. He's got the great value version of those two in a tougher division with better cornerbacks, with better defenders. I don't know. I know you disagree on the
You're
Russell
you're
take,
you're
but
you're you're right. You're right, and then you're just a little bit wrong. You're just a little bit wrong. But what you said is that you said today. You are right today. Uh,
mhm.
you'll notice that the Broncos rather they do really well in between the 20s. So they move the ball just fine. I mean, he had 348 yards passing against the Seahawks. It wasn't as if they weren't moving the ball. They just stink in the red zone.
Right.
And things get tight in the red zone. There's less field to cover. So you know what matters in the red zone? Coaching. You need to have something schemed to get your dudes open. Or like you said, that DK Metcalf type, you just Mike Evans, you just toss that little fade and just come down with it and get your dudes open. Or you got to have something crazy, or you got to have something special to get your dudes schemed open. And that's not happening. So for me, you are right. If Nathaniel Hackett was just a better coach, it would be an upgrade, because what Russell wanted was to get away from Pete Carroll's 2001 offensive schemes into the modern era, which was what Nathaniel Hackett was supposed to bring, but he just failed. He has just failed at this point.
Right. Yeah, no, there's really not much left to say about the Broncos that hasn't already been said. I
Agreed.
think and by a formula, I think the Broncos should work with Russell Wilson, especially if Javonte Williams lives up to the potential of being the Mr. Break the tackles. He could be a baby beast mode, but I'm not seeing it yet. I guess we'll just have to
I
see till
disagree
next
on
week.
that one. Javonte Williams looks like, I watched both of those games, and ritually he looks really, really, really good.
He
That's
could
my
live up to the
takeaway.
potential. I think he looks all right. I think he looks solid.
Javonte is my takeaway from both two games. Like, wow, this guy can play. Anyways, I think we kind of got this one. Let's go ahead and move on. Tua Tagovailoa had a
My boy.
career day against the Ravens, throwing for 6 touchdowns, 469 yards. Is this a sign of things to come for Tua and the Dolphins?
I will say with Tua, the 6 touchdown performance was in the realm of expectations for this player. I do want to say Tua does it against a practice squad Ravens team with a lot of injuries. Everyone's just like, nah, Tua's not good. But Joe Burrow does it. Oh my God, he's the greatest. And I love Joe Burrow. Don't get me wrong. I love the man. He's, I'm a simp. But Tua, 6 touchdowns. This isn't no Mitchell Trubisky or Nick Foles type situation. I just want to do a little bit of stat comparison here. Tua threw for 469 yards. Yes, he has Tyreek. Yes, he has Waddle. He went 36 and 50, I want to say, in passing completion to pass attempts. Yeah, he threw 2 interceptions, but I think it really is a sign for things to come. We needed Tua to time in a system where the coach actually likes him, because from my understanding, Flores did not like Tua. He wanted Justin Herbert. So now that he's in a system where they actually have faith in him and they actually want to hone in on what he's good at, I think Tua's going to be great going forward. And you look at the Mitchell Trubisky 6 touchdown, he did that against a terrible Buccaneers team, and it wasn't a competitive game whatsoever. It was Mitch stat padding, while Tua was in the middle of the heat of the game in a competitive game where he could very much well lose the game, but he managed to pull it off. And he has the playmakers. But hey, man, he has a talent for getting the ball into playmakers' hands. There's not a lot of quarterbacks who can do that.
I disagree with you on this so much. I am so unimpressed by
Oh
what I
my
saw on Sunday.
God.
So the first half was entirely unforgettable. He was 12 of 20 for 150 yards with a touchdown and 2 interceptions, both of which were thrown into double coverage, if I remember correctly. And then you touched on this, but you missed the boat a little bit. Tua threw 6 touchdowns, which sounds really impressive. So here's a list of some quarterbacks that have thrown 6 or more touchdowns in a game. You got Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, and Peyton Manning and Ben Roethlisberger, okay?
Right.
Here's some other quarterbacks who have thrown for 6 or more touchdowns in a game. Nick Foles, Mitchell Trubisky, Ryan Fitzpatrick, and Matt Flynn. It is indicative of absolutely nothing when you throw for a bunch of touchdown passes in one game. And I'm going to talk just a little bit longer.
No, you're fine.
Tua was good on Sunday, but of his 6 touchdowns, 2 of them were blown coverages, completely blown to Tyreek, one of which was underthrown in the middle of the field. It should have been about 5 yards deeper. One of them was an overthrown ball that was really, really high. That was a circus catch for Mike Gesicki, the tight end. The other one, he did pretty good. You know, he had a little spin and then he ran out and threw it to him and he got it. And the very first one was a quick screen. There's nothing to that. He just turns, steps, and throws it. And then he did have one that was a really solid throw to Jalen Waddle. That was solid. So what he did is he did what would have been expected of any other quarterback. He threw to two busted coverages, one that looked like it was thrown away, and one that he just tossed out to Jalen Waddle on a quick screen. There's nothing impressive about 4 of those touchdowns.
I will give you a quick little rebuttal on that.
Okay.
Mitchell Trubisky has had blown coverages in terms of what George Pickens has done, and Deontay Johnson, two very talented receivers who have gotten open habitually week to week. And Mitchell Trubisky can't hit the wide open guy. So there's definitely a difference between the two. Also, what you described about Tua and how he's just hitting these guys almost sounds a little bit like Patrick Mahomes. I'm just saying, Patrick Mahomes throws a lot of overthrown, underthrown balls that Tyreek makes magic out of. Tyreek is a very talented receiver. I'm not saying the 6 touchdown necessarily propels Tua into top 15 conversation, but I'm saying it's a sign of greatness in the future. No,
because you mentioned it yourself. He's throwing to, you can't just, okay. Any legitimate starting quarterback in the NFL would have had the exact same day that Tua did. He did not do really anything that was outside the realm of expectations of what would be for a normal starting quarterback, which Mitchell Trubisky is not. He is a bridge, a backup. He is not. Baker Mayfield would have had the exact same day. I might be able to argue Justin Fields would have had the exact same day.
Oh,
Trey Lance might not have had the exact same day. But here's what he did. He has arguably the best receiving core in the NFL against what you called a bunch of practice squad guys. So basically, what that means is he's just throwing it to a bunch of wide open wide receivers meant to pile on the yards. And he had pretty good protection the entire day. So he did what he was supposed to do. All he did was throw to a wide open guy. The more impressive quarterback was Lamar. Lamar was the better quarterback yesterday.
Because it's furthering my stance that Lamar Jackson is the top 6 quarterback that everyone keeps talking about all offseason. Just saying.
After yesterday, I'm going to go back to what we said last week. I totally agree with you. The way that Lamar stood in the pocket, made subtle pocket adjustments, and delivered the ball to wide receivers, who was also throwing to some wide open wide receivers yesterday. Let's just call that how it is. But he had a really, really, really good game, and he was definitely the best quarterback on the field. Absolutely no contest. And I would argue he played the better game too.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree. I still think that Tua, he got some prime time in him. That's all I'm saying. He's kind of in the same situation he was in, except with a severely underdeveloped O-line that he had back in Alabama. But
the only situation that's different for him is he just has better everything. Like he has better. If you just move Tua and Baker Mayfield, they're the same quarterback. They're the same quarterback. They're both undersized. They both don't have a great arm. They both can stand and deliver when I don't want to say when the pressure's not on, because Tua does deserve some credit for coming back from 3 touchdowns down. That was a big deal. But when you're asking your guys to throw to wide open wide receivers, there's just nothing there to impress me.
So, no, I sort of get it. I agree to disagree on this one.
You're allowed to be wrong.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I feel like you also have the right to be wrong, because I still think it's Tua time, baby. I like Tua. He beat my boy in the Orange Bowl. I have to put respect. Wait, did he? I think he was in that. I don't want to talk myself into a hole, so I'll let you.
Hey, you already did that earlier. Okay, so moving on. The Chiefs overcame a 10-point first quarter deficit to get a really important win last Thursday over the Chargers. So what are your takeaways from that game, Addison?
My takeaway, I'm going to do what Mr. Chris Collinsworth said in Super Bowl, I think it was 53, Eagles versus Patriots.
Yeah.
I don't even know what a catch is anymore. That's what he said. And when I saw Asante Samuel Jr. pick that ball off, there was no indication to me that was not a catch or an interception. I feel like the Chargers were robbed. My best takeaway is that Patrick Mahomes doesn't progress through his reads as quickly as Justin Herbert does. We're going to call it like it is. He's Herbert. He's the boy, Colbert, Herbert. I think Herbert in that game, and especially playing with the bruised rib injury, has given me an all new perspective on how good Justin Herbert is. I think he is tremendously talented. And I would say at one point, I will say Justin Herbert has the potential to be the greatest quarterback in the NFL over Patrick Mahomes. And the progression, it was said in the game, and I said it about 20 minutes before they said it, the commentators said it. Just look how Justin Herbert scans the field. And he was missing Keenan Allen. He scans the field so quickly. Also, shout out to my boy Gerald Everett. I've been an advocate for Gerald Everett. He is the most underutilized player in the NFL, and he's finally on a roster that is utilizing his talent. He's a very, and it's weird because he's been beaten out with players like Tyler Higbee. The Seattle Seahawks wanted Noah Fant over Gerald Everett. That makes no sense to me. But overall, I'm a little unimpressed by the Chiefs. I think the Chargers kind of threw it away rather than the Chiefs winning, but that's a topic, that I've already mentioned before.
We have talked about that. So for me, there's 4 major takeaways. I'm just going to start with 2 so I don't hog up the screen time. Number 1, Patrick Mahomes is one of the 2 most impactful players in the NFL today. It is him and Brady in a class of their own when it comes to deciding the outcome of any given football game. He might not necessarily be the best, but his impact is one of 2. He has a 55%. His win percent is sorry, let me say that again. Patrick Mahomes wins 55% of his games when he goes down by 10 points in the first quarter. The rest of the league is 15%. He is never out of a football game, and his team knows it. There is something about him that goes, his teammates that go, we got Patrick Mahomes, you don't, we're still in the game. And
Right.
Brady very much has that effect as well. Second one, totally agree with you. Justin Herbert is a better pure quarterback than Patrick Mahomes is in terms of drop back, hang in the pocket, go through your lead, deliver the football. Justin Herbert is better. Patrick Mahomes is the better improviser when the play breaks down. He misses that read, whatever. When it's time to just like look around and make special, crazy, whatever happened.
He's super athletic.
Mahomes is on his own.
Right.
But watching Herbert play is incredible. You can see special, and it's not very often you see special when they just drop back and throw it, but it's crazy. You can literally see the special in Justin Herbert just by watching him throw the ball. So I completely agree.
Still think Justin Herbert is way better than Tua. Don't get me wrong. I like Justin Herbert too, and I would 100% agree. I think Patrick Mahomes' ability to be able to make something happen from nothing is, like I said, I do think Patrick Mahomes is the better quarterback. I think you said it way better. Justin Herbert, I think, is the better passer. There's a huge difference. I think Joe Burrow is the better passer than Lamar Jackson. I want to call back to that. But I think Lamar Jackson's the better quarterback because the team is never out when Lamar Jackson is playing. His X factor and his ability to improvise will always keep him in the game, as you mentioned with Patrick Mahomes.
Sure. So the last 2 I have is the Chargers, you touched on this, are a better team than the Kansas City Chiefs. You touched on this. Totally agree with you. They had the better players. In every way except the final score, the Chargers were the better team. The Chargers had more total yards. They held the vaunted Kansas City offense to 319 yards of total offense.
Dang.
The Chargers had more first downs. The Chargers won the time of possession. They held Patrick Mahomes to 224 passing yards, which is the 7th, if I remember correctly, lowest output of his career. They were the better team last night in all facets, and they didn't even have Keenan Allen. And lastly, the Chargers, and I touched on this earlier with the Broncos, the Chargers are held back by their coaching. This game was decided by the fact that Andy Reid is a significantly better coach than Brandon Staley. And it is unfortunate because Brandon Staley is a really good defensive coach, but this isn't a defensive league anymore. They're just not creative or good enough on offense. If this team had like an offensive wizard as a offensive coordinator, this game has a different outcome, and it really might not be close. This might be a 2-touchdown victory for the Chargers. This season, the Chargers need to do every single thing they can to get Sean Payton out of the booth. Every single thing they can to get Sean Payton. He wants to go there, and there's even more reason for him to go there now after watching that game. Like, Sean Payton makes this Chargers team a Super Bowl favorite.
Oh, right. I also would like to mention one last thing about Justin Herbert.
Yep.
Is he throws the ball with such conviction. It's almost like there's no doubt in the ball. Sometimes when you see a quarterback, especially a really bad quarterback, throw a football, it doesn't look as though it's a very confident throw, which often leads to more picks. Justin Herbert he'll throw an interception, but he'll throw that interception so confidently. And he's got that dog in him. They did the X-rays. They found that dog in him, and I like him a lot.
He's gonna throw this interception through the defensive back's hand.
Oh yeah,
like it's just gonna go right through to his guy.
Kind of reminds me of Drew Brees a little bit, right? Mentioning the Sean Payton example. They're very confident.
Yeah, absolutely. He's confident. Like the offense is the only thing holding this team back at this point. They've got players everywhere.
Right.
So if you have all these players and you can't get the most out of your players, whose fault is that? It's the coach's fault.
It's the coach.
It is. Yeah, it's absolutely the coach. The coach is the reason that they're not gonna make it deep in the playoffs. It's that simple.
In a real final take that you mentioned about the coaching, it is true. Even though the Chiefs are an inferior team in terms of roster, the well-oiled machine play of the Chiefs, every player is involved. That is a coaching trait rather than just a team trait. It's just something that the coach was able to get from his team. But I agree. I think the impact that Patrick Mahomes has, and a lot of your takes were pretty sound.
Appreciate that. Okay, moving on. Best and worst of the week. We do this every single week where we give our best of the week and worst of the week. I'm going to go ahead and start this one off if you don't mind.
Yeah,
so best of the week is Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Jalen Waddle is the second best thing to ever happen to Tyreek Hill after Patrick Mahomes. Tyreek Hill normally has a lot of underneath stuff. We've seen this where he just catches this little quick screen and then he just goes and breaks a bunch of tackles, and it's what would be a 5-yard gain is end up a 35-yard gain. So naturally defenses can't cheat up on that because he's just going to go over the top. But now they even more can't cheat because they have to double down on that speed of Jalen Waddle, because Jalen Waddle will go up over you too. So the speed on this team is crazy. This might be the fastest offense ever with Raheem Mostert, who's one of the fastest running backs in the NFL, Jalen Waddle, and Tyreek Hill. The late Al Davis would cry if he saw this team. I don't know if y'all remember, if y'all are old enough to remember this, but that's all he drafted. If he saw you at a 4-2, he's like, that guy's on my team. That's basically what this team is. Go ahead and give us
McFadden.
Like Darren McFadden. Go ahead and give us your best of the week.
My best of the week, I have two actually. So my first one is my boy Kyler Murray, who had 84 yards of total rushes in one play. It was a 20-second play where he scrambled, and the Raiders looked so lost. And the fact that, mind you, I'm a Cardinals fan. I've been a Cardinals fan for almost 20 years. This is a team that gets comebacked on, not getting the comeback. And when I saw, and I'm still not used to it, when I saw Kyler Murray in his debut lead a comeback against the Lions, of course it was a tie, I will say, but it honestly, seeing Kyler being able to lead multiple comebacks, we're talking about 5 comebacks in the last 2 years, it shows that Kyler Murray can give me faith that if the team is down by 10 points or more, that they have a possibility of still winning that game. And that's something I've never had as not only a Cardinals fan, but as an Arizona sports fan. I do have a second best of the week. I'm not sure if you want to go.
I've got 2 as well. Go ahead.
Showing the love to Oklahoma quarterbacks and Alabama quarterbacks, and he's both. Jalen Hurts. I talked about it. There's a difference between being a good quarterback and a good passer. He's still a little off in terms of mechanics and passing, but he's a tutty getter. He gets tutties all the time. He's a rusher. I love Jalen Hurts. He looks so incredible. His deep ball looks great. Of course, they have gone against really bad defenses. However, Jalen Hurts looks really good. He looks really good. And if your only flaw is you can't pass the football, that's something you can learn with time. We've seen it with Josh Allen. We remember how bad Josh Allen was when he couldn't pass. Now look at Josh Allen. I'm not saying Jalen Hurts is going to be Josh Allen, but I'm saying Jalen Hurts has an opportunity this year to be a top 15 quarterback.
And
I think he's one of the best.
You absolutely love to see it from Jalen Hurts too, because he has done nothing but do the right thing and be a good dude his entire career. He got benched in college and ended up being a 2nd-round pick. And just to see him succeed, like, he's a very easy guy to root for. And he seems like a good locker room dude too. I love that you brought that up. So best of the week, the Lions. The Lions entered
My
Sunday's game
boys.
as the
Yeah.
Lions entered Sunday's game as a favorite for the first time since November of 2020, and they delivered. They won the game. And look at this. How much more impressive does that close game against the Eagles last week? How much better does that look now? In hindsight, seeing what
Age
the
well.
Eagles just did against the Vikings, the Lions played them close. They showed crazy fight, and the Lions are also tied for second most points in the league with the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. I am starting to believe in this coach. It looks, I don't love him at the podium. I think the knee biting thing is weird. It looks like he's starting to create a culture over there, which is so important for a ritually bad team. As an Arizona fan, you know what this feels like. It is so important to have a culture for a richly bad team. The sad sack Lions are so easy to root for because they
Right.
always lose, but now they have that grit about them and they're just likable. They're like likable. Like you have a reason to root for them. Like you can look at them and be like, wow, they might actually be taking steps. Absolutely love
Right.
it for the Lions.
Oh yeah, me too. This team has been awful for so long, and
Forever.
I like their coach. I forget his name right now, but the fact that he
Campbell.
is willing to, they remind me of a high school team in a sense where
Yeah.
they just do the wildest things, and you're just like, what? Also, DeAndre Swift, and the way that DeAndre Swift, the Jamal Williams combination, the 1-2 punch, is
Mhm.
the most effective 1-2 punch in the league right now, next to Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. The
Agreed.
team looks really good. The fact that they almost came back against the Eagles is a really good sign that this team is solid. Another thing is that Aiden Hutchinson, I think he had like 3 sacks against Carson Wentz. He had something absurd. Maybe I'm getting
Mhm.
that stat wrong. But Aiden Hutchinson, he was supposed to be the first pick in this year's draft. And the fact that he fell to the Lions, that's going to be like a JJ Watt type presence. That could be a game changer, a guy who gets
Sure.
pick sixes, forces fumbles, an ultimate X factor for that defense. I still believe that the defense is a little suspect. Because
It
Jeff
is.
Okuda, he kind of looks a little sketchy, but the Lions offensively look phenomenal. They look really good, especially
And
Amon
you
Ross St. Brown.
Yeah, and you wouldn't expect out of a team that has Jared Goff as a quarterback to look like that. But hey, here they are. They're
Hey,
finding a
we've seen him
way.
do it before. We saw him with the
We
Rams.
we have seen him do it before. Let's move on to the worst of the week. I'm gonna get us started here again. Worst of the week is Jameis Winston. Jameis is still being Jameis. This dude had 60 yards passing 5 minutes into the third quarter. Everything that he threw past like 10 yards past the line of scrimmage just looked uncatchable. He didn't go over 100 yards passing until 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. 3 interceptions, 1 pick 6. It was just all the bad Jameis rearing its ugly head in one game.
Jameis Winston, I thought when he got LASIK, the interceptions would have ceased. No, he's still throwing interceptions. He's such a. Sometimes it feels like he's playing for the other team. Like I have no idea what he's doing, and it's funny because he is one of the most like funniest people in the NFL. He's hilarious. I don't know if you remember that interception back when he was at FSU, where it looked like a bunch of ghosts were attacking him, and he fell over and threw a pick 6. I think it was the Oregon game. Jameis
Yeah,
Winston, dude, I feel like you have to take like 100 tabs of acid to truly be on his level
yeah,
of just
absolutely.
like whatever he's on. I want to be on that, because he's a very interesting guy. I would say, to kind of transition this to one of my my worst of the week. I think the Vikings are pretty, like, yeah, they beat the Packers. I think the Packers just look bad this year, but the Vikings went out on Monday Night Football and looked abysmal. Kirk Cousins is not really a primetime quarterback. Gives me a lot of Andy Dalton prime vibes a little bit. But the fact that they weren't able to do anything against that player or against the Eagles was just depressing. Wide open Quez Watkins in the middle of the field. Their secondary looks awful. They got Santa Claus's reindeers out there. You got Dantzler and Peterson looking like they look so bad. They looked horrendous. And how do you go from making a historically great quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, look terrible, but then go out there against the Eagles and look horrendous. And my second worst, real quick, I just want to get this over with because I already talked about it a little bit. Mitchell Trubisky, I hate that man. I don't like him. He's a great guy personally. I'm sure he's a great guy. I would let him date my daughter. But I will say this. That guy needs to go. You get Pickett out there. He needs to go. I hate that guy. Deontay and George Pickens are too good to be having an awful quarterback. Get Pickett out there. Let him make mistakes. Let him do his thing. I'm sick of this Mitchell Trubisky project. Mike Tomlin and what's his name, Matt Canada or whatever his name is, the Steelers. And this is a Najee Harris owner in fantasy. That is my low light of the week is watching the Steelers play. I don't even want to watch them tomorrow.
All right,
but that's my.
I got you. I got you beat here on worst of the week. The Colts. The Colts haven't won in Jacksonville since 2014. If Jim Irsay fired Carson Wentz for losing there last year, he's just going to fire everyone in the building this week. They got absolutely destroyed. And the stat sheet makes it even worse. They had 218 yards of total offense and 3 turnovers. How do you have 218 yards of offense in 2022? All the rules, everything leads toward offense. You have one of, if not the best running back in the NFL, and you've got 218 yards and lose to the Jaguars.
See, I thought the Indianapolis Colts fan, I thought they got rid of the problem Carson Wentz, the guy who's making the Commanders look like a contender somewhat. And I thought Matt Ryan was supposed to be a huge, tremendous upgrade. I thought this team had Super Bowl contention. They got a great O-line. They have Doolin. What was he doing? The team looks horrendous. Honestly, at this point, they're better off trying to give Andrew Luck a call. This man, 5 years out of the NFL, is probably still better than Matt Ryan currently. I'd rather see Andrew Luck at this point. I'd rather see high school football quarterback or high school football coach Andrew Luck out there instead of Matt Ryan. The team looks horrendous. Don't tell me this whole Michael Pittman, his quad, he was injured. I don't care. You're going against Jacksonville and dropping a big fat goose egg. Yeah, no, not about it.
Don't imagine getting shut out in 2022. You hate to see it, man. They look terrible.
This is an offensive league. The league is built to be offensive. Imagine. It's like getting, I don't know. I had an analogy, but they're terrible.
Zero. All right. With our final topic of this week, it is the upset of the week. And I've updated our graphic with our records, and we're both not doing too good on our upset of the week pick. I'll go ahead and let you start this one off.
Well, I'm about to go 0-3 because my pick is kind of a jinx pick. I need Joe Burrow to start doing something. I know it seems like I'm a huge Joe Burrow hater, that I hate this man's guts. I like Joe Burrow. He's awesome. He's a great quarterback. I like him. But I have the Jets as my upset of the week because they need to get their shiz together. Joe Flacco looking really good right now. He's got a good team since Baltimore. He's not an elite quarterback. He's never been an elite quarterback, but I got the Jets winning. They beat the Browns in crazy fashion. I think the Jets go out there. And I think, hear me out. Joe Flacco gets that starting job, and Zach Wilson is going to be on the bench for at least a year.
Okay. Let's get this guy into a mental hospital. You've officially lost it, man. That's too much. That you had me. I respected I had such admiration for your willingness to put yourself out and choose the Jets. But you lost me with the Joe Flacco pick. All right. All of the underdogs this week just really suck. Like there was no good picks this one. So I'm gonna pick your favorite quarterback this week. My upset pick of the week is the Steelers. They entered this game as a 5-point underdog to the Browns. And here's the only reason I'm picking them. The only reason I'm picking the Steelers is there's a history of Mike Tomlin being a really, really, really successful coach as an underdog. The Steelers didn't look good against the Patriots. They didn't even look good against the Bengals. But Belichick has Tomlin's number, so I don't make too much of it. And honestly, there's just no good picks. So I'll toss into the wind. My upset pick of the week is going to be Mitchell Trubisky. Hopefully not there, but the Kenny Pickett-led
We'll see you
Steelers.
next week with the big fat 03 next to our names because
We will
Mitchell
see.
Trubisky is terrible.
You're absolutely right. We're gonna be back next week with the 0 and 3 from both of us. So that's gonna wrap us up this week. Y'all take care, everybody.
Peace.